All right. Hi, Joe. How are you?
How are you, Doug?
Doing fine. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. Joe Santana, are you any relation to Carlos?
I get asked that question a lot.
I
And
bet.
when I was doing speaking in front of groups, what I would usually do is I would use that as an opener by telling people that I was asked that question often. And then I would tell them I was going to answer the question and that the answer was yes, I'm not related to Carlos.
Okay. Well, that's too bad. He is a legendary guitar player, that's for sure.
He is, he is. I can sing a little bit, but no guitar.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see. What you do is you are chairman of the CDO PowerCircle and the creator and host of the ERG PowerTalk podcast and Virtual Academy. It was a mouthful. Why don't you tell us, take it one at a time. What is CDO PowerCircle? What is that?
Sure. So the CDO PowerCircle is an association of people that are chief diversity officers within large organizations, and they basically are the ones that help the CEO and other leaders in the organization set the strategy for diversity and inclusion. And the ERGs are basically employee resource groups, and that podcast is for the leaders of those groups. So if you think about it, the CDO PowerCircle is for chief diversity officers who are at the strategic level, whereas the ERG Power Talk podcast and the ERG Power Talk Learning Academy or Academy are for the tactical leaders who lead these various resource groups, women's groups, veterans groups, et cetera, et cetera.
We've heard the term diversity a lot in the last 20 years or so. Is this just a new term for equal opportunity employment or even for like racial quotas in large corporations?
No, I think diversity, well, basically diversity, if you look it up in a dictionary, just basically means variety. And what diversity is talking about is the variety of people, the various demographics of people that are out there. So diversity efforts focus on things like how do you get the most out of the available population in all its various forms and mixes that are out there who could be part of your workforce. So it doesn't necessarily target any particular group as some of these other programs do that might, for example, target more women in leadership or target more people of color being hired into the organization. Diversity may contain those, but it's actually a larger topic that includes everybody, regardless of their ethnicity or their racial background or gender.
This might sound like a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Why is that important to be a successful company?
It's important if you look at, for example, some of the statistics out there on demographics. And it's a great question that actually I have a great answer for that was provided to me by a CEO that I was interviewing the other day. So if you look at the demographics of any particular area where you're running a company, in her case, it was a healthcare organization. If you look at the demographics of people, if you look at the demographics from the standpoint of people that are, let's say, 50 to 60, and then you look at the demographics or the makeup or variety of people from ages of, let's say, 40 to 50, and the same, going down various buckets of age groups, what you're going to find is that the diversity of the groups increases as you move into younger and younger groups. So the mix of people changes as you go across these groups. And quite frankly, there are studies out there that show that what are considered today, in some cases called minorities, collectively will form a majority in the next couple of years. So how does that connect back to your question? Well, the answer is that if you have an organization like she does, she has a health and hospital organization, you need to be able to get people to join your organization, to be engaged, to want to work for you, to rise to the levels of various leadership spots that will eventually be emptied from a population of people that's increasingly becoming more diverse. So if you're not effective in being able to bring in people, being able to attract women into your organization to become not only contributors but later leaders, or African Americans or Asians or other groups, then what's going to happen is you're going to find yourself looking for employees in a shrinking pool. And law of supply and demand is very simple. If you are looking at a shrinking pool, your costs are going to go up. You're going to lose people in your organization. That's going to cost you money. That doesn't make you very competitive. Also, on the flip side, your markets are going to become also more diverse. So what that means is that the people either using your hospital, if you're a healthcare organization, or buying your products or your services, they are no longer going to be predominantly the same group that we have today. It's going to change. And if your message doesn't resonate with that diverse population, then your market's going to be shrinking on the other side as well. So if you have a shrinking market on one side and less people that really see your organization as an engaging place to work, that's not a formula for success. So that's why it's important for organizations, not only now, but as they move into the future, as organizations move into the future and these transitions in demographics continue to take place.
Well, it's interesting because this is sort of uncharted territory. We are a new country. Our system of government and the idea of everybody comes here from different places and becomes an American hasn't really happened anywhere else before. We are very unique in that sense. We seem to have gotten to the point where there is so much diversity in this country that we can't seem to have any common thread that binds us together as Americans. We seem very divided politically, socially. There seems to be a lot of unrest. Now, I know COVID hasn't helped the situation much, but is too much diversity a bad thing in terms of cohesion amongst people? I mean, there has to be some common ground for people to get along. Otherwise, I think you're going to have anarchy.
Yeah, absolutely. So here, what we are facing today as a country, and quite frankly, other countries are starting to face it as well. And the internet and everything that's connecting us together is making the world a lot smaller. So even people who aren't geographically close to us are coming closer to us. What we're facing today is an interesting inflection point because, first of all, we've come through history. We as a human race have come through history from a period where we maybe only got together in families, family tribal groups that hunted together and lived together, shared common ancestry, shared blood, and we worked in those groups together. The systems that held us together could not scale to hold us together as we began to form groups that settled into, let's say, agricultural farmlands and so forth, and began to form cities and states. We needed to have other connection points, other parts of our culture, or a new culture had to be developed that no longer was just for a family, but was for an entire nation of people that shared resources, were neighbors, etc., maybe went to the same place of worship. And that became the string that tied people together across various nations. Now we're at a point in history where we're being challenged to create another overlay, if you will, where we're able to then contain these various different nations or groups that speak different languages, have different beliefs, have different practices. And for that, we need to develop a new cultural system. No one's going to assimilate really to somebody else's cultural system that smoothly. And it's kind of unfair to ask them to do that. So the bottom line is that we're evolving, and our organizations and our countries, our political systems and all, they need to go into that, they need to sort of lean into that evolution, because there's no turning back as the world becomes smaller and we bring more and more people closer together. And one more thing I'll add to that is that there was a study that was done recently. I just saw it the other day. Can't remember the exact details of it, but it was a study that was done about what people believe, and it was American centric, so it was about the United States. And one of the things that they found that was fascinating is that across all the political spectrums, there were certain things that we all believed in, but we might talk about it differently. So we all valued freedom. We all valued certain rights and certain things. We maybe articulated them differently. So my point is that probably some of what divides us is the way that we talk about things or the way that we explain things as opposed to the actual things themselves. You know, everyone shares a certain common love for certain things, such as freedom, such as their family, their children, and so forth. So there's a lot more that we have in common, as Maya Angelou said, than the things that make us different. But I think what divides us right now, or what causes some of the friction that we see right now in organizations and in countries, is that in most cases, these organizations or countries have been developed around one cultural construct by people that maybe were here earlier or were predominant for a long period of time. And that cultural construct now is being challenged by other people that are growing in numbers. And so the answer is, again, as I said before, is just like in the past, we went from a construct that was the construct of the family to the construct of the nation state to the construct of the country. We need a more global construct than we have right now. And I don't have that. No one has it. But that's what we need to build.
Well, I think you're right. Unfortunately, I don't think as a human race, and I'm not singling out Americans, that we're there yet in the mindset.
Yeah.
I think we're still very tribal. I think we have world powers like China, who I don't think are on the same page with that. They're interested in their own growth and perpetuation of power. So I think we it's a nice idea, but I'm not sure if I'm going to see it in my lifetime.
Like most ideas of this type, it's something to strive for, but it's not something that's just going to basically appear suddenly. The construct that we have now that we consider normal, let's say, countries and nation states, this didn't just pop out of thin air within someone's lifetime either. It happened over centuries and centuries and centuries.
Yeah,
it's the same process again. It's just that we as organizations and as countries need to be aware that there is something that we're aiming for and then take steps to move progressively toward that. But with no Pollyanna belief that we're going to get there within the next, within our own generation or the next couple of years.
Right. Okay. Well said. We've got about 2 minutes left, and I want to hit on your book. You have a book, right?
Yes, I do. I've written other books, but this is an upcoming book that's going to be released in September on a topic that I think is really timely.
Okay. Does it have a title?
Yes, it's a very long title. Hopefully you have it there because I don't have it in front of me right now.
I don't either. I'm looking at your bio. That's why it just says your book.
It's basically just at this point, Doug, it is a working title that I have for it. So it's not in its final stages, but very loosely, it's basically it's the non-technical leader's guide to automation and AI. And it's basically about the fact that the amount of AI or artificial intelligence that's being used to do things in organizations like hire people, fire people, decide how much to pay them, et cetera, is increasing dramatically. And these machines or these systems that we're using also have biases because they're built by us and we have biases. And they're also trained using data from our past, which is full of historical biases. So moving forward, it's important that leaders and organizations who want to continue on that journey to make their organizations progressively more inclusive, progressively more attractive to this increasing mix of people, that they also make sure that these systems that they're bringing in are properly monitored so that they don't introduce barriers to that in their organizations.
Well, we won't put up any sort of title. We'll just say, come back again and check out Joe's book in September, or somewhere in there when it gets released. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Yeah, my personal website is www, my name, Joe Santana with no spaces.com. And what I will say for your listeners is that if they're interested in learning more about the book, or they're interested in finding out when the book has been released and its ultimate final title, they can email me, because right now I'm just putting people on a list, and I'll be sure to keep that list and email them back and let them know what the title is and when the book is released, and give them a discount if they name your show as the source where they found out about the book.
Okay, and your email and all that is on the website?
Yes, but it's joe@joesantana.com. So again, it's just my name, @ and then Joe Santana, no spaces, .com.
Thanks so much for coming on the show. This was an interesting conversation. We could have gone on a lot longer, I know. Big topics here, but thank you.